life keeps changing day by day, like a hurricane. They say that nothing ever stays the same. Well, what became of the love that we once had? And when the good times turn to bad, remember, it ain't the big things that make my heart sing. I'm just waiting on the phone to ring, 'cause it's small talk that makes a bigger picture. Brothers and sisters, it's a small talk that paints a bigger world. So when you're out there on your own, far away from home, and you're searching from your soul for some love inside it, just remember this, it's small talk that paints a bigger picture. That's where the heart is. It's a small talk that makes a bigger world. Just get started, so when you're ready and you're able, pull a chair up to the table. Oh, it's a small talk that makes a bigger picture. Brothers and sisters, it's a small talk that paints a bigger world.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to Big Conversations with Small Talk. This is our first show that we're attempting to do. I'm Alex Brace. I'm the executive director here at Small Talk, and then I'll kind of pass it off to our other panelists to introduce themselves and their role at Small Talk, and we'll talk a little bit about what the concept for the show is going to be, and what we plan on doing today, and just all the exciting stuff we have planned. So Sarah, we'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself next.
Okay, perfect. I'm Sarah Helmer. I'm a crisis counselor at Small Talk, and we're so happy to have you here today. Thanks so much for joining us.
And I'm Megan Bryant. I'm the family advocate here at Small Talk, and I'm here just to be able to provide different resources and things like that. And we're really excited that you're able to check out our show.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for introducing yourselves. So for some of the people who are watching this right now, this may be the first time you're seeing us. So we want to help you to kind of learn a little bit about who we are and what it is that we do and some things that we like. So we just wanted to start off with something fun. We do that a lot when, at our work, when we have icebreakers with different groups that we're working with and things like that. And we want to insert some of the fun stuff that we like to do at work into this show as well. So I know we have a short icebreaker that we'll do. So Sarah, if you can pull that up and we'll go for it. Very cool. All right, so this is the word wall, right? Is that what it's called?
No? It's called Open the Box.
Ah, okay, so exactly the opposite of all the words I just said. All right, so what we're gonna do is we'll go around and we'll each pick 2 boxes, and then there's a question inside the box, and we'll answer it. So, Megan, why don't you go first? Pick a number.
I'll pick number 2. Oh, my favorite, well, my caffeinated beverage of choice is coffee, for sure, all day long.
Anything special in your coffee?
It kind of depends on the day. If it's like early in the morning, I like a little bit of like cream and sugar, or I have Peeps Creamer now, which is pretty tasty. Or if it's like the afternoon or evening time, I like just black coffee.
Okay.
But one thing about Megan is that she's definitely not a Big B coffee fan, right, Megan?
Big B is not my first choice, no. Dunkin' Donuts or Tim Hortons is the way to go.
Okay, all right. Well, awesome.
Okay.
All right, Sarah, why don't you go next?
Okay. I'm gonna pick 3. Ooh, okay.
A very appropriate Sarah question.
What's your favorite dance move? I am an embarrassing dancer. I'm really not good, but I know it. So I guess that's a good thing that I'm aware. So I learned how to floss last year, and I'm quite proud of it. So I'm going to go with that one as my favorite dance move.
Good choice.
How did you learn how to floss?
A client at Small Talk actually taught me.
Oh, that's pretty
It's
cool.
perfect. Yeah.
It's so much fun. We try to teach them, and then they end up teaching us, right? It's such a nice
All the
gift
time.
that we get. All right, I'll pick number 4. If you could be any animal, what would you pick? I feel like I always get this question. It's always the same answer. So I'd be a bear. I just like bears. I think they're really cool. They're really, I'd maybe specifically be a baby bear because I just think they're adorable. And, or I would be Baloo from the Jungle Book if I had to pick a specific animal, because I really identify with Baloo. I think he's great.
So he does a lot of like dancing and singing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
We
me
could
though.
team up.
Yeah.
All right, Megan.
I'll go with number 6. I think that my most used emoji is like, it would be the smiling face with the big smile, because I am always smiling and I'm always like laughing about things. So I think that that emoji kind of highlights my personality at the same time.
Agreed.
Yes, very insightful and accurate assessment of yourself, Megan. That's awesome.
All right, I'm going to go with 5. Ooh. Okay. If I could bring back any fashion trend. Well, I used to be a big fan of the scrunchie, but I heard that's kind of making its own comeback without me. Probably like the high scrunchy socks. I think those are really fun.
Okay.
All right, last one for you,
All right.
Alex.
I got number 1. Do you have hidden talent? No, I guess would be the quickest way to answer that question. I really have to think if there's anything that, I think when I was younger, I think I still can. I can do a front flip, but I can't land on my feet. I can only land on my back. So I don't know if that's really like a talent. I think it's probably more impressive if you can land standing up. So that's probably the closest thing I can think of to like a hidden talent that I have. But I'm too old to do that now, so I don't want to test the water. So it'd be dangerous for me.
It's still impressive.
Yeah, I guess. All right, awesome. Well, thank you, Sarah, for leading part of that icebreaker. So hopefully that helps you guys learn a little bit more about us and who we are. We are, all of us here at Small Talk have been certainly impacted by the stay-at-home order, and being able to provide services is something that's still really important to us, even though we're staying home. So we've been developing some teletherapy, so we're still providing services to the clients that we serve at Small Talk. So I guess we should maybe back up a little bit and talk about what Small Talk is in case there's anybody who doesn't know. So we are a children's advocacy center in Lansing. We serve Ingham and Eaton counties and provide services to children who are victims of sexual and physical abuse. So anytime that happens in either of those counties, those children are referred to us by law enforcement. We provide a safe space for them to share their stories with a trained interviewer and provide a child-friendly environment for them to heal. So we provide counseling services and victim advocacy or family advocacy services to all the clients that we see, and those services are provided at no cost. We have prevention programming as well. So we have a staff member who goes into the community and educates adults on how to prevent and respond to child sexual abuse. So, with the stay-at-home order and, under those circumstances, we do a lot of in-person meeting with people. That's kind of our bread and butter. But we've obviously had to make some adjustments to make sure that not only our staff is safe, but the children and families that we serve as well. So we were really looking for, in addition to doing telehealth and doing some outreach via our social media, trying to find some ways to keep people engaged during this really difficult time, because it's not just the trauma of abuse that our clients are dealing with, but it's also the trauma of being isolated for, a month now at this point, and not having the same level of interaction that we can, and the stress and the financial strain that this puts on families. We wanted to have a forum for people to be able to ask questions and, share some things with us, and we can share our knowledge and the resources that we have to help families to be as successful and happy as they can under these really difficult circumstances we are with this coronavirus pandemic. So I don't know if anybody else had anything they wanted to add about, kind of why we decided to do this now, but please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I think we always try to be very client centered and client focused as an agency. And so, we really wanted to make sure that we were answering the questions that everyone has right now. So that's a big part of why we have asked all of you to submit some questions to us, is because we want to give you what you need. So please feel free, for the coming weeks, we're going to be doing this show every week. So please feel free to add any questions you have about, the stay-at-home order, or how to kind of manage your family structure and dynamics at this time, or even just questions that are separate from coronavirus entirely, about mental health, or helping support your children, anything like that. We're totally open. So we just want to help you with whatever you need.
Yeah, and I think we also talked about, if there are questions that people have, odds are they're not going to be the only person with that question. So, we want to be able to help answer those questions for as many people as we possibly can. And my job is to help find resources and be providing all this helpful information for everybody within the community too.
That's great. What a perfect segue into our next segment of the show. We didn't even plan it that way.
Planned.
Right, yeah, it's like we have an agenda, and we spent a couple weeks developing all of this idea. It's not like we just decided this yesterday. So we have a couple questions. Thank you guys for submitting questions to us. So we really appreciate it. As we continue to grow the show, we hope we can get more questions. And like Megan said, I think there's a lot of questions that people have, and maybe they're just afraid to ask or don't know how to ask them. This is a great forum for you to get some great feedback from some, excluding myself, really smart people. Megan and Sarah, very knowledgeable. So the first question comes from Lisa. So her question was, what are some good conversation starters at the end of the day when parents are exhausted and kids might be closed off? So Sarah, maybe that would be a good one for you to take.
Yeah. So, it seems like this could be an opportunity to kind of try to bring some fun into sometimes challenging conversations. Obviously, this is a time when we want to be checking in with our kids emotionally and making sure that we're keeping that line of communication open. But a couple of thoughts that I had on maybe how to make it a more engaging conversation when everyone's kind of just really tired at the end of their day is almost to make it into a game. So one idea is to maybe develop as a family some fun or interesting questions that wouldn't be a typical way to check in. So for example, what color would you describe yourself right now and why? And that might help kids or even caregivers or anyone else in your family to express how they're feeling without having to necessarily have a strictly emotional conversation. Another example is maybe similar to Alex's question at the beginning of the show, what animal would you describe yourself as right now and why? Some of that can kind of give you insight into how your children might be feeling, and they might be able to explain it in a way that sometimes can be really challenging to explain when we're kind of having more of a serious conversation using feeling terms only. So, it could be paired with a fun game like Uno or just any kind of card game or your favorite board game. Some of the questions could be used as like the cards that you would pick normally in the game. So that's something that we do a lot in counseling at Small Talk to kind of keep kids engaged and to be able to get to like the meat of what you're trying to focus on in the conversation, but in a way that can be really fun and engaging. So I don't know if either of you have any other thoughts on some recommendations, but that was something that just came to mind for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. It kind of reminded me of, I know in counseling a lot of what we do, or I can only speak for myself, but I'll use the ungame a lot of times at the beginning of, just to kind of build rapport with clients that I work with. And I think like a game, like Sarah's saying, like a game like that, it can be really helpful. So that's one. I think it's easy to, it's not readily available on Amazon. I know we can't necessarily leave the house and go to the store and get it, but if you're looking for kind of like a really quick, fun way to sort of get kids engaged, I know there's a board game version and there's also just like a pack of cards. But that's a really, I think, cool, it's not just therapeutic tool, but I think it's just great for, starting conversations about things that maybe you wouldn't even necessarily consider talking about. And sometimes if people have had a really stressful day, to kind of separate themselves from that and talk about something that is not coronavirus and that kind of stuff related, to just kind of take a break from all of the stressful conversation and do something fun, I think is always a great way to do it. And if a happy kind of accident from that is it helps conversation and communication in your household, that's a win-win.
Another thought I just had that I wanted to add is something we really like to do at Small Talk is to use a beach ball and to write questions on it with Sharpie. So again, like a beach ball might be something that you already have at home, or it could be a fairly inexpensive purchase on Amazon, but you can just write questions. Maybe you could come up with them together as a family, just some really lighthearted, fun questions, and just write them all around the outside of the beach ball. And then you can kind of like toss it to each other back and forth, and whatever question your thumb lands on, you would try to answer that with your family. So that can be an engaging way to have some conversation at the end of the day too.
That's a great suggestion. All right, awesome. Well, thank you, Lisa, for your question. All right, so this next one is from Anne. So her question is, how can parents keep their kids on a consistent sleep schedule right now? So I'm sure this is probably one of those questions that's like a lot of parents have this kind of in the back of their mind as something that is really difficult. I know that is not the easy. I know for me, having just one child, it's difficult. I can't imagine what it's like with having more than one. So I don't know, Megan, if you had maybe some suggestions or some thoughts about some advice you'd give to some parents on keeping a consistent sleep schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I'll be able to talk a little bit more in depth about when we kind of get started. But one of the biggest and most important things is to be making sure that you're having consistency with waking up and going to bed. Like you're setting times where, when you look at the clock and see that it says 8 o'clock, then that means you're able to get out of bed. And then after you've had bath or a nap or not a nap, a snack or dinner or something like that, then we'll know it's time to maybe read a story and get ready to go to bed and be able to have your kids stay in their rooms. Maybe they could pick out a couple different books to read, and then say when you see that the clock says 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever the bedtime is, then that's when we need to close our books and set them aside and lay down and start to do a little bit of relaxing, making sure that we're able to get to bed on time and that the books will be there to read again the next day if we need to. And then that also goes on to say having consistency throughout the day and making sure that kids are staying active and doing things to make sure that, when it is time for bed, they're tired and they're ready to go to bed too. So having different fun activities instead of maybe too much screen time or things like that. All of those are factors when it comes to having consistent sleep schedules.
I've noticed too, this tends to be like some teenagers tend to be kind of almost shifting to like sleeping during most of the day and maybe staying up for a long period at night. And that's understandable. But I think like what Megan was saying about really trying to make sure there's some solid activity throughout the day would be really helpful. And just kind of like picking a day if they're already off schedule to say, all right, we're going to set an alarm. You know, you can kind of gradually like work it back an hour at a time so that it's not just, you know, they're only getting 2 hours of sleep one night. But making that plan together, like if you do have an older child or teenager, I think can help to empower them to kind of feel like they have some ability to control that for themselves as well.
I think, you know, oh, go ahead, Megan.
Sorry. Off of that though, Sarah, with as far as like, you know, teenagers go, a lot of times scrolling through social media is something that a lot of people do before bed, and making sure that maybe you have a set time that you're gonna put the phone away, put social media away, and just take some time to spend with yourself instead of scrolling through and staring at a phone. You can do that and then give yourself a half an hour to kind of just relax and distance yourself from technology for a little while.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think what I heard a lot of you saying too, Megan, was just there's a level of overall consistency that can help with establish the sleep schedule. So having a consistent sort of daily schedule can be really helpful for making nighttime and getting like settled for bed a lot easier. Because sleep is, I mean, such an important thing, and it, you know, helps us to not feel as stressed when we have all these things to feel stressed about. If we're able to control getting a good solid amount of time where we can just lay in bed and get our bodies recharged, sometimes that can make a world of difference for just how we're reacting emotionally to things too that are going on in the world or in our own households too. Great. Well, we want to thank Lisa and Ann for those questions. We have a couple more that we're going to do in a little bit, but we want to move on to our next segment. So one of the really fun things about sort of establishing the show is we got to come up with fun names for segments, and I found out that we really like alliteration. So this is Megan's More Than a Minute, so she's gonna have more than a minute to talk about some different educational resources, and she's put together some stuff. One of the really cool things that we'll do at the end of the show too is with the resources that both Mega and Mega, your name's not Mega, your name's Megan, Megan and Sarah are gonna share. We will have these posted on our website as well, so you'll be able to, you don't have to like rush and write down website names while you're sitting here watching the video. You can just go right to our website, and we'll put a link in the comments below so you can get right there and access all these resources that we talk about today too. So I'll hand it off to Megan and let her do her More Than a Minute.
Well, thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I, speaking of having consistent schedules and things like that, I have put together a type of schedule for families to be able to use. It starts, I believe it starts around 7 in the morning, ends around 9 p.m. Of course, we do have the editable version of that that we're going to be posting, so families are able to change the different activities throughout the day, change the time of the day that it's going to occur, or even the length of time that the activity is going to occur. But I just wanted to be able to have this schedule because it is so important to keep consistency. And as we start to think about, you know, getting back to normal and getting back to school and getting back to work and things like that, we want to make sure that we're inching our way closer and closer back to having that, our normal routine. And so having a schedule where you get up and have breakfast and then do some academics and then have a snack and then do something outside and then get ready for lunch, and doing different things like that will really make a big difference when it comes to not only just making it easier on getting through the day, but also making it a lot easier for kids to be able to just focus. And a lot of times, you know, having consistency in schedules reduces stress and it reduces anxiety in kids. It provides them with a whole bunch of security too when it comes to being able to know like what's next and being able to predict what their day is going to look like. But then of course off of that, sticking to a super strict schedule, sometimes can be a little tough. So it's also really, really great to have flexibility throughout the day too. So, sometimes maybe we want to spend a little bit more time on math because we're struggling with some math problems. So maybe we'll extend that time on Tuesday, but on Wednesday we finish math early so we can move on to playing outside for a little bit. And it's really important because then we're also able to give some control to the kids and let them be able to kind of adjust their schedule and have the power to decide when they want to start their activity, how much time they need to work on it, and things like that, as long as we're sticking to consistency throughout the week too. And then of course, going off of that, it can be really hard, trying to plan for different activities throughout the day. And so another piece to my job is providing different resources and educational materials, to be able to do while we're at home. And one of the coolest things that I just found the other day was an activity for families to be able to do. So I'll just tell you a little bit about that. Because here at Small Talk, we really like to be interactive with our community members and community partners. So we'll also be posting this again, like Alex said, to our website. So on the James Dyson Foundation, which you can get to that by going to jamesdysonfoundation.com. This is the inventor and creator of the Dyson vacuum, which is pretty cool because it's a name that most people know. And he has created this foundation to inspire kids anywhere from elementary to high school and college age to become more able with like the different abilities that they can do. And his big picture idea is to create just some more inventors and some more engineers and different things like that. So his website has a whole bunch of different resources to be able to do when you're at home and also still learn, which is a pretty cool thing, to have fun and still learn something. And one of those resources is called challenge cards. And with his challenge cards, they are different activities that you can do with your kids or as a whole family. And you're just kind of inventing, creating, and testing out these different really fun activities. And so we wanted to just send out a challenge to all of you for anybody who decides to try these challenge cards from the James Dyson Foundation. And we want to see what you can come up with and what kind of activity you can do. And you can let us know that by using the hashtag SmallTalkCares, and then also still posting that on our Facebook, maybe even posting some videos and pictures of your projects too, because we would really like to see some of the different things that you come up with.
I want to try a challenge card.
Yeah.
That makes me really excited.
Yeah, one of the ones that I thought was pretty cool was you take like a soda bottle and attach a balloon to the top of it, and you make like a race car out of it, which seems pretty cool to have like different races and things like that at home. So there's some pretty cool stuff. I think maybe I'll even challenge Sarah and Alex to try and make something so we can share the different things that we can try and create.
That would be fun to share next week.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Okay. That sounds fun. All right, cool. Well, thanks, Megan. I think those are really great resources and good suggestions for, keeping a consistent schedule. And like I said, those will be up and available. So you, again, didn't have to write furiously while Megan was talking. You can just pop over to our website and get those resources right away. So, all right. Well, thank you again, Megan. So the next segment we have is, again, more alliteration, which we love. We love anything more than alliteration. It's puns, but that was a little trickier to come up with this time. But we got a lot of weeks left, so we can maybe come up with something. So this is skills and support with Sarah. So I'll let Sarah take it away, and I know she's got a lot of really cool stuff planned for us to try out even today too. So
yeah, thanks, Alex. So my segment is called Skills and Support because I want to just be open to providing, some different examples of like coping skills and activities that you can do with yourself as an adult or with kids or with your whole family. And then also, obviously, I'm a crisis counselor, so just trying to provide emotional support to anybody right now who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed. That's why I'm here. That's what my job is. So I wanted to start today just by talking a little bit about how to communicate with your kids about what's going on in the world right now. Obviously, this is a topic that's like very overwhelming, even for adults. And so I have a few key points that I just kind of wanted to touch on for recommendations to consider when you're having these conversations. Obviously, like this has been going on for a while now, but just because your child might have heard about coronavirus already doesn't mean that it's too late to have these conversations still. So my first point is don't be afraid to discuss it. Obviously, we want to be appropriate for every child's developmental level, but something that kids really need is, predictability and an awareness and to feel like they're kind of kept in the loop. So, kids must be seeing people wearing face masks right now. They're probably overhearing things on the news or seeing things on social media. And so rather than kind of keeping them in the dark about what's going on when they might be kind of getting some hints about it, we want to be able to be the ones to share the facts with them about what's going on. And that helps us to be able to kind of filter out some of the really scary things that they might hear, like on social media or elsewhere, and just to be able to provide them with what we know is going to be helpful to answer their questions. So Alex is going to share in the resource section of our website a link to a story that you could read with your kids. It's all about kind of what coronavirus is, and I think it's really cool because it's not presented in a scary way. Again, it shares the facts, but it is very appropriate and it looks like a regular kid's book. So check that out. And it's kind of like a workbook. Your kids can kind of fill in certain pages and you can do that along with them. So my second point is share information with your children, but try to keep it short and sweet. So we obviously don't want to be super overwhelming to our kids right now. I think that, this is a time for us, again, to really be mindful about how much information do they need to feel like they understand what's going on, but without bombarding them with like every fact that we hear as adults. So what I would recommend is setting aside some check-in times throughout the day. So this can be, once a day, twice a day, but having it kind of be at somewhat of a regular time each day. Because again, like what Megan was talking about with predictability and consistency is so key in helping kids to be able to cope with things that might be, overwhelming. So this could be in the morning at breakfast, or it could be, right before dinner. Just kind of a consistent time when you can just ask your kids like, hey, do you have any questions for me, about what's going on in the world, or like about how you're feeling or anything else, and just like leaving it really open-ended in that way. And that gives your children the time to lead that discussion on their own. So that helps you because now you understand what, is going on in their mind without having to assume and fill in the blanks all on your own. And it's okay if you don't know the answer to everything. I think, obviously we're not all expert scientists about coronavirus. So just being honest with your kids and saying, hey, I feel a little bit confused about that too. I'll try to see what I can find out and maybe we can talk about it tomorrow during our check-in time. Just kind of trying to return back to something when you're able to get some more info for your kids. My next point is about being mindful about what kids might be overhearing or seeing. So if you are having adult conversations that might seem scary about coronavirus, or you like maybe have the news on and your kids might be able to hear that, just trying to be thoughtful about how that information might seem for them. So if you can, kind of give yourself space and time to be able to meet those needs that you obviously would have on your own, but trying to just be extra aware right now about what kids might be overhearing. Next, I wanted to talk about focusing on how you as a family are staying safe. So again, this can help to empower kids to take steps on their own to feel like they're helping people in the world or they're able to keep themselves safe. So something that we do a lot at Small Talk with our clients is to teach, some safety skills, because we know that when kids feel like they can take action on their own, it helps them to feel like they're in control, even when things might be, not fully always in their control. So one recommendation I had for this is just kind of making it fun, teaching kids about like fun hand washing techniques, or finding some really cute videos about germs and about social distancing. So again, these are some videos that we're going to be sharing on our website. They're at a couple of different like developmental levels, so you'll have to check them out and see what might be best for your kids. But I would recommend just kind of having a time to sit down with your child, watching it together, and then having just a little bit of a brief conversation about it afterwards if they have any questions. And my last recommendation for conversations about coronavirus is to be aware of like your own anxiety levels around it before you start that conversation. So again, it's so normal right now to feel overwhelmed or extra anxious or scared about what's going on. We don't expect that you're going to be like superhero parents and not have any of those feelings. What I would recommend is trying to just check in with yourself before you're going to have a conversation with a child about it, so that you can take steps to reduce your own anxiety beforehand, because kids can really pick up on that even when we think they might not be able to tell. So one way to be able to check in with yourself is kind of developing like a mental scale, figuring out like what number on a scale from 0 to 10 would mean that I'm probably like too stressed to have this conversation, and setting a standard for yourself that you can go back to on a regular basis, to say like, okay, what's my number right now? Does that mean I need to do, something to ground myself, take some time for myself alone, or am I ready to have this conversation right now with my child? And then that brings me to some examples of like grounding techniques or skills that you can do if you're feeling like you are a little bit overwhelmed. And we are, really mindful of the fact that there is a lot of like pressure on parents right now, and you're being pulled in a ton of different directions, like most likely being at home with your children all day, and not having a lot of time for yourself. And so rather than, saying that you can just go take a minute for yourself, I wanted to be able to share a technique that you might be able to use with your children to practice some relaxation techniques. So Megan and Alex, I was wondering if you could help me to demonstrate this for everybody.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Okay, perfect. So for this, it's called the 5-4-3-2-1 activity. And we're going to use our 5 senses for this. So our 5 senses are seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and touch. And so we use our senses because that's really helpful for our minds to kind of be in the present moment and to ground ourselves and to help to relax. So for this activity, what we're going to do is we're going to go around and we're going to try to come up as a group with 5 things we can see, 4 things we can like feel or touch on our bodies, 3 things we can hear, 2 things we can smell, and 1 thing we can taste. Okay? You think we can do
Okay.
it?
Yes, I hope so. We'll find out.
Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah.
All right, so who wants to go first with 1 thing you can see? And you can try to point out something that you wouldn't normally notice.
Okay.
I see a whole bunch of movies, which I have right next to me. And some of them are like my most favorite movies to watch too. A whole bunch of them are Disney. Surprise, surprise. But it's a whole shelf of movies. And it's kind of overwhelming to look at. I don't know if I'd be able to show it because of our background. But yeah, that's one thing that I see.
Okay.
Thank you.
I see. I'm looking out a window, and I see that it's snowing again in April.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. Kind of a downer, but I can see snow.
Okay, perfect. You guys are doing great.
Good.
I can see, I have like a little pencil jar next to me on my desk, and I can see I had a pen that the ink just like exploded inside my jar the other day, so I see the ink all over the bottom of my jar.
It's very specific. That's a good one.
Yep.
Yeah.
It helps for seeing to think about like things that you don't normally notice. It just helps to kind of bring your awareness to the present moment a little bit more. Megan, you want to share one more?
Yeah. If I look up at the ceiling, I can see that there is like a little bit of white paint between the gray wall and the white ceiling, but it's a different color white than the ceiling is. And I can see it all the way around the room.
Nice. Very observant.
Yes.
All right,
I'm
Alex.
gonna top that one. I have a like a flash drive that's plugged into my computer, and while it's plugged in, there's a light that's going on it, but it's pulsating, so I'm like watching it like go in and out at regular intervals.
Nice.
So yeah, I always thought it was just one solid like light the whole time. I didn't realize that it was working.
Okay, great. Okay, so just to kind of speed it up a little bit so that I think people can still kind of get the idea, but we won't have to go through the whole thing for people. Let's do maybe, we'll each pick a sentence and do one thing. Does that sound good?
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. So it's my turn, so I'm going to go to feel. So for this, it helps to try to think about like what can you notice that you're feeling on your body that you wouldn't normally pay attention to. So for me right now, my feet are flat on the floor, and I can just kind of feel like the weight of my feet hitting the floor, and just kind of noticing how that feels on my toes and my heels, and just kind of how that is for my feet. All right, Megan, you want to pick a sense?
I would love to, yeah. I'm gonna pick sound because I started thinking about it. And I have a fan going. It's like a ceiling fan, and it makes like a little like humming kind of sound. But it's not constant. It's like almost sounds like it's going in circles, and I can hear that up above me.
Nice. Thank you. All right, Alex.
Okay. Jeez,
You're choosing
a bit
for
too
both of
hard.
us.
Okay, yeah, I know, right? I'll choose taste because I didn't eat that long ago. So I had some soup for late lunch, and there's still sort of like hints of like saltiness, and I mean, I guess that would be sort of the primary sort of taste sensation would be the saltiness of it, of the soup.
Yeah. Well, taste is definitely, I think, one of the hardest ones. So
Unless you're like
taking-
actively, I know, yeah, that's unless you're actively eating. Yeah, that one's a little trickier to do, but.
Right, but that is the way. I mean, if you're at home doing this activity, it is a little bit easier to like just grab a quick, really small little snack for this activity.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leaves smell for me. So when you're doing this with your kids or even by yourself, I would encourage you to try to take some really nice big deep breaths when you're doing smell, because that, you know, in itself helps with some relaxation as well. So I smell my coffee that's sitting right next to me. That smells really good and it's really strong. So I'm gonna go with that.
Awesome.
All right, so that is it for the activity. I would encourage you guys to try it out, and you can kind of make it into a fun game where you go back and forth with different family members. And you'll have to let us know if you like it or you come up with any cool ways to use it with your family.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. I think those are all really great sort of practical things for us to discuss. And maybe it's, you know, some of these things that maybe we implicitly sort of are thinking about, but I think it's really helpful to have like some guidance into how to have those kind of conversations with our families. So thanks again for putting that together.